How is it going, everyone? And welcome to episode 0 of the All You Can Board podcast. My name is Dylan.
And I'm Carlo.
And this is pretty exciting. This is our very first, this is our episode 0 podcast. And so this is basically being released on the exact same day as our episode 1, which means that right when you're done this, you can go right into episode 1, which is great. And this is just a way to sort of like introduce a little bit about us and get, especially if you haven't watched our YouTube channel, which we'll get into in a little bit, this will be a good place to learn about our style, our taste, a little bit about us in a smaller format so that you can have that context as you go into episode 1. So that's kind of the reason why we're doing an episode 0. A lot of podcasts, we've seen this before, and it's just sort of like a nice entry point, especially for people that might be like watching or listening to the podcast. I got to get used to saying listening because I'm always saying watching because of the YouTube channel. But down the line, if you're wanting to like start with our original episode 1, you can kind of start with 0 instead and get a little bit of context into us. So like I said, this will be like typically shorter episodes, or episode 0s are typically shorter episodes, and it's just a little glimpse into us, a little glimpse into how we approach the hobby. And so I'm not even going to waste any more time. I think I'm just going to kick it over to Carlo so he can give a little bit of an introduction into who we are and what All You Can Board is if this is your first time with us.
All right, so the first thing I should mention is that Dylan and I are cousins. So we have been gaming together for most of our lives, whether that is, video games, Magic the Gathering we played a ton of when we were growing up. That was probably our biggest sort of connection in terms of gaming when we were younger. We currently live very close together. We actually live on the same street, just a few blocks apart, which makes it really nice for getting together to play games and, sending our equipment back and forth for when we're recording videos for our YouTube channel and whatnot. So yeah, we've been very close for a long, long time. And that's probably the main reason why this YouTube channel and podcast, to a lesser extent, exist in the first place, is just like, not only do we get along super well and love spending time together, but we have a lot of similar interests. While I think you'll see, if you've seen our YouTube channel before, you'll see that we also, differ quite a bit. We have a lot of things we still disagree on, which is good. Keeps things interesting, so we're not always agreeing on everything.
I like how you said sending our gear back and forth as if we have like a courier that we're just like, the courier's coming to pick up the gear, bringing it down. We should, honestly, now. I wish we had a courier for the gear. Save
us a bit of time for sure. So we also have a third member, our good friend Braden, who we sometimes refer to as the third cousin. So he officially joined as a member of our YouTube channel back in, I believe it was the beginning of 2023, or possibly 2024. I think it was 2023. So he will appear on the podcast when available. He does a ton of work for us behind the scenes that people don't see. So just know when we refer to Braden, it's not just some like random guy. He is very much a third member of All You Can Board. So Dylan and I launched this YouTube channel together, the two of us, in January 2020. I believe we started talking ideas and formulating plans back in 2018. I think our YouTube channel actually says that it was created in November of 2018, even though our first video didn't get published until January 2020. We started with a pretty not a specific format, I would say, where we would just pick one game and then do a separate how to play video and then a review for that game. And after a while, we started to think, the name All You Can Board always was intended to be kind of like a buffet style offering of different types of videos. We never wanted to feel like we were, pigeonholing ourselves and restricting the type of things we could do. And so, as a result, obviously, the pandemic, COVID-19, hit very soon after we launched this channel and caused all sorts of challenges, and that was a big part of what made us kind of shift the way we approached our YouTube channel. So yeah, as far as the first few years ago, you can take a look and see how we've evolved over time. Our biggest, the thing we're proudest of, and maybe our most defining moment of our YouTube channel and All You Can Board in general, I would say, would be our mental health 24-hour gaming live stream, which we did in May 2022. If you want to check this out, we have videos on our live tab of our YouTube channel. So we basically played games for 24 hours straight. We were probably awake for 30 to 35 hours. We had all kinds of prizes that, publishers and various other, people donated. We put up prizes, and we managed to raise over $17,000 for a local charity here called Sarah Riel Mental Health and Addictions. So mental health is something that is really important to us. And ever since then, it's kind of been a big proponent of our channel and of our community, including our Discord server. And it's something that we know it has resonated with a lot of people and is a big reason why a lot of people have stuck around in our community. And so just know that that's, in terms of charities, causes, fundraising, that kind of stuff, that's always going to be probably at the forefront of again, when we're looking to raise money and give back to the community in some way, that's always going to be a big thing for us. And, we just think in general, being open and vulnerable about that kind of stuff and, having places to talk about it is extremely important. So
I'll never forget when the very last game from our live stream was Lost Cities, and like right before we were getting ready to do it, seeing you like essentially like keeled over, like trying to survive to be able to do the last game, because you had been up for like 30 hours at that point, and me being like, you can do it, man. It's one more game, and at the same time I'm like, I'm gonna fall asleep at this table. And
oh yeah, well I actually lied. I didn't fall asleep when you and Braden were playing Marvel Champions, but I certainly took that opportunity to be horizontal on a table that was outside the main gaming room. And before that game of Lost Cities, I don't know if you know, I went outside briefly and did some jumping jacks out in the rain, and then I came back inside, and maybe that explains my Lost Cities performance, which I won't spoil here. But anyway,
for now on, for every game that you really want to win, you just got to do a set of jumping jacks. Clearly,
yeah, absolutely. And so, after, a little while later, our YouTube channel, at some point, we were kind of off and on for the past couple of years. The majority, we had some stretches where we didn't have a ton of videos just due to limitations, both in terms of our time and just sort of mental capacity, personal things that were going on in our lives. And we just kind of had to take a step back and reevaluate. We tried coming back in a big way in January of 2024, and we had a bunch of plans, and we released a channel update video, but unfortunately, life kind of just got in the way again, and we weren't able to follow through in the way we would have liked. But as of December 2025, so just about a month ago, we have now returned in a really big way, which you can get more info to that. I think the best way to get more info on that would be to watch Dylan's video on our YouTube channel, the 6 solo games that got me into solo board gaming. I believe it's called something along those lines. I think Dylan kind of covers the story and how we're sort of back at it now. So I think that's the most important stuff you need to know. And we, as of, I would say 2023, 2024, we had planned for a long time to launch a podcast, and it just wasn't really possible. We didn't want to launch it if we didn't know we could actually maintain it. But here we are today, and we're excited for this new chapter.
Yeah, totally. And so if you're wondering why a podcast, if we already have a YouTube channel that is like, successful in the sense that we have a large audience on there, and we have done topics on our YouTube before that some might say, or we might even say like, oh, that's kind of almost like better for like an audio thing, or people do kind of watch our videos. Like they tell us with just the audio and listening to the background. So like, why a podcast? And I think for us, like this allows us to tackle more ideas that we've had and will continue to have that have to do with things that don't really have a strong visual component. And while we can get together to film those at a table together and post those on YouTube and attach some B-roll, of course, and we probably still will for certain videos, there's a couple of things at play. One, it's a lot easier for us to schedule recording a podcast because we don't have to always get together, or if at all get together to do that. We can just remotely from our own locations, especially with Braden, who lives a little further away from us. We can just meet online and we can record much more achievably and on sort of like a schedule that doesn't involve like travel time, especially in Winnipeg, where like sometimes traveling in the winter means like heating up your car for like 10 minutes and venturing out in what is this week going to be like -40 with the wind chill and stuff. So it makes it easier in that sense. But then, the main thing being like even our episode 1, which you'll be listening to obviously right after this, is our board game laws, our personal board game laws. That's something that we could have done in a video, but one, there's not going to be as many clear-cut B-roll opportunities. Many people are probably mostly going to be watching that to listen to it instead. And so it allows us more opportunities to do topics like that on the podcast. And I mean, there's a whole slew of other benefits. There's now an entire audience that might not have found us because they don't consume YouTube, or YouTube isn't something that they go to regularly, but they're in their cars a lot. They listen to podcasts, and now they have a way to connect with us, and it gives us an opportunity to grow our communities and actually add a bunch more people to our community, meld them together, and get more people that are in the board game hobby sort of talking in our community, in our Discord, things like that. And actually, I should probably mention too, like I mentioned, -40 winters, there's going to be at least someone out there who is like, where the heck do you guys live?
Exactly.
So, we live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, where I think it was like in I don't even know. Within the last 10 years, we had a winter where we were recorded as being like colder than Mars. So in the winter, and our summers are like plus 30, or like it's got to be one of the weirdest places to live in terms of like the dichotomy between our summers and our winters. But yeah, so we're located essentially like in the polar region, what it feels like at times in the winter, and then suddenly we're on the equator. And so the other thing I was going to mention is that if you want to, even though you're getting a bit of a window into us here and sort of what motivates us and our philosophies and whatnot for the hobby and how we play games, you're going to get an even better idea of that if you watch our channel update video on our YouTube channel. And so that was something we put out in January of 2026, so very recently when you're listening to this. And we go, it's about like 40 minutes long. We get into a lot of our philosophies about how we're going to handle review copies, how we're going to handle like paid content or not handle paid content on our channel, and like a whole bunch of stuff that'll probably give you a lot of color and texture to us as gamers, to our channel, to our approaches going forward. And so it's really, we be treading a lot of the same ground, bringing up a lot of it here. So it's just easier to sort of direct you to that if you want more insight into us. And then I also want to mention that you will be hearing this podcast every 2 weeks. For right now, that's our plan. We have no plans immediately to like change that either. We're not saying like, oh, we're doing this for now, and then in March it's going to weekly. We're going to sort of evaluate this, and this might be the perfect fit for us, and we'll just stay by weekly going forward. Or we might find that we want to do it more frequently. Like, we're going to leave ourselves open to sort of discover that as we go. But right now, bi-weekly podcast every other Friday, posted in the mornings, as long as Dylan, me, can figure out all the technical aspects. But I feel like, I'm confident. I feel like I'm going to be able to do it. So,
yep. The only other thing I want to say real quick is just the one thing about reviews is don't expect, not just reviews, but don't expect that we are going to be covering the hotness all the time. If what you look for in board game content, whether that's YouTube or on a podcast, is just like always talking about the brand new games, we will feature new games, of course, but we really want to talk about some older games as well and have a mix so that people aren't always feeling like they just have to be keeping up with buying and playing all the stuff that everyone else is talking about. So,
yeah. Perfect. And then in terms of format, what you can expect from our podcast episodes, we're going to keep it pretty simple for us and for the audience. We're going to have a main topic on every single episode, and that'll take up the bulk of the episode. Imagine it taking up like 75 to 80% of the episode, roughly. But we're going to start each episode, and we'll call that the main course, because, all you can board food. And then we're going to start each episode with appetizers. And the appetizers are going to be one from every host. So if it's just myself and Carla, we'll each have an appetizer. If Braden's there as well, the three of us will have one. And it's just something, it allows us, it's up to the person, up to the host, what they want to talk about. It'll be something that lasts, a couple minutes, 3 minutes max, 4 minutes max kind of thing. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's just a way to be like, maybe there's an amazing game we played that we just have to tell our audience about. Maybe there's something that happened this week in one of our gaming sessions. Maybe there's something that happened in the industry that we really have a perspective on. Whatever it is, it's up to the host what they want to bring to the table. Get it? Bring to the table food.
Braden would be proud. Braden's our
he would. Very
unofficial. I shouldn't say unofficial. He's I would say our official pun master. So he's
official.
Wherever he is listening to this, he is smiling. I guarantee.
Braden approved. So then we'll start with the appetizers, go into the main course, and that'll essentially comprise most of our episodes. I'm not going to rule out the possibility, obviously, like who knows, we might have ideas in the future, things might change, but that's how we're approaching things just for ease going forward. And so that each episode you can kind of know is going to be whatever the title of the episode is, that's going to be the main topic that we're discussing. And like I said, our episode 1 after this is our board game laws. And if you're curious about exactly what that means, what that is, you'll have to watch it or listen to episode 1. And then the last thing I'm going to mention really quickly is just a quick little plug for our All You Can Board Hall of Fame, because if you want even more insight into us as gamers, we have this Hall of Fame where us collectively, the three of us, have to be able to agree on inductees every year. We actually recorded it, and it's on our channel. You can see the discussion of what went into us picking our initial inductees, which ended up being Modern Art, For Sale, and oh my God, what was the other one? Modern Art
Wavelength.
For Sale. Wavelength, of course, yes. Modern Art For Sale and Wavelength, which are our first 3 Hall of Fame inductees. We're not necessarily going to have 3 every year. You could have more, could have less, but that'll happen annually every winter, essentially, probably like December. You can expect that. And so that is on our channel. You can give that a watch and see the entire thought process and discussion that went into it as well.
All right, so now I think we'll jump into the last section of this little episode 0, which is just talking about kind of how long we've each been in the hobby, how we got into it, and we're going to also each name 3 sort of foundational games that have defined us. So I got into the hobby probably around 2007 through playing Carcassonne on my brother's Xbox Live. So he had just discovered this. I went over there. I didn't even realize that it was really like a board game at first. We started playing it, and then I quickly discovered that there was an actual physical board game of this. I knew nothing about the kind of, hobby outside of the kind of staples of like Battleship and, Clue and Scrabble and all that kind of stuff. Monopoly, of course. And it, I mostly just played a lot of Carcassonne for that first probably couple of years. Obviously, eventually learned like stuff like Settlers of Catan, which is now just Catan. But that was really my big entry point into the hobby. And Carcassonne to this day is still one of my favorite games of all time. It's still something that I play regularly, both in person and digitally. And actually, in my wife's, so I got married in 2017, and in my wife's wedding vows, she mentioned something about Carcassonne being my true love, kind of jokingly at the time. Oh, maybe it wasn't jokingly, but that just to give you an idea, that's how big Carcassonne was for me, that it made it into my wife's wedding vows.
Yeah, even a weirder, it was like, I remember after the wedding that you spent your first wedding night with Carcassonne, not your wife. Right?
Yeah, I didn't think it was weird, but... Okay, so a couple of years later, I bought Agricola, which is probably my second most foundational game. So I bought it around 2009, 2010, and I logged over 100 plays of that game in person within the first few years with a certain specific group of friends. And I'll say this was around a time where Dylan and I had sort of drifted apart, not for any specific reasons, just, where we were in life and friend groups and schooling and all these kinds of stuff. It was just our lives weren't overlapping as much. So I wish he had been around for the Agricola days, but either way,
that's why we drifted apart. You started playing Agricola.
It'll bring us back together like you could never imagine, Bill. Give it a chance. Okay. So yeah, and I think what really got me into that was the depth of the game, the strategy, the being able to plan from the beginning, but also just the variety in the cards and just drafting the cards and playing again and trying different strategies with the cards. And I started to realize how much I loved cards and card games and variety like that. And it kind of gave me a bit of the feel of Magic the Gathering, just in the sense of kind of like looking at the cards and going, whoa, this is so cool. How can I make this work this time? And it is still, as of the last time we did our top 50 games of all time, Agricola was still my number 1. Will it still be my number 1 when we do our top 50 games of all time this summer? Who knows? We'll have to stick around to find out. And sorry, you look like you were about to jump in there for a second.
I was going to say the Vegas betting odds I've heard are starting to skew for the first time towards it not being number 1. It's just
I'll be honest,
wild.
It's the first time I've started asking myself if it's still the number 1. I've felt pretty confident in the past, and this is the first time I think there's a chance that it might get displaced. If not this year, maybe in the future. We will see. Not for it becoming any less enjoyable, but just there's other games that are potentially climbing ahead of it. Anyway, the last game I'll say is my other third foundational game would be Race for the Galaxy. The main reason was that it taught me the value of sticking with a game and getting over the initial hurdle. I think I was sort of enamored with both Carcassonne and Agricola pretty much off the bat. I wouldn't say either one of them became, like Agricola didn't become my number 1 game immediately, but I knew I loved it. Race for the Galaxy, I'd heard great things. But as it was maybe only my 5th or 6th game I had ever played, other than Carcassonne and Agricola, it was like Catan, Ticket to Ride, and Pandemic. It's a game with a ton of iconography, and it just was, I hadn't played anything that had this kind of like simultaneous play going on for the game. There's multi-use cards, all this kind of stuff. And it used to just feel really obtuse, and it used to take at least 45 minutes to an hour to play. And now I'm at the point where I can get through a game in 15 minutes with another experienced player, or on an app, I can actually play a game sometimes in under 3 minutes, which I know sounds hard to believe, but Race for the Galaxy is, in my opinion, the most decisions you can cram into the shortest amount of time. And if you include the digital versions, it is by far my most played game. I think on the app I've logged over 2,000 plays. I've only maybe done about 50 in person, but it was also a foundational game for me because I am a parent. I have a couple of kids. One is 4 and the other is almost 2. And a lot of time when I would be, holding my kids when they were babies, just rocking them to sleep, it was like holding them in one arm and then the other hand, I was holding my phone playing my Race for the Galaxy app. So still one of my favorite games of all time. And yeah, those are my 3 foundational games that defined me.
Yeah, Carlos' son's first word was Agricola, and Carlos' daughter's first word was Race for the Galaxy. 4 words, actually.
A man can dream, Dylan. A man can dream. I'm already trying to pencil in when to introduce. No, that's years away for both, but they don't have a choice.
My foundational games. So for me, I'll just preface by saying that like I had a harder time really pinning down foundational games. I feel like I had less games that were really like that I look back on as foundational games, and more just games that all sort of contributed to me feeling like this is a hobby that I really want to get like into and engross myself in. And so like my first like hobby board game that I really owned, which is the first one I'll mention here, is Pandemic. And Pandemic, the funny part about this little nugget is I went to a little toy store here when I bought Pandemic looking for Agricola. I went there to buy Agricola because Carlo had played with me at this point, and I think at the time it was either still #1 on Board Game Geek's top 100 or it was just highly regarded. And I was like, hey, I want to start trying to like explore these board games, the idea of board games more. And they were out of stock of Agricola, and so I was looking for other ones that I like had either heard of or thought I could get into, and Pandemic was there. And so that like I have an old cover of Pandemic because it's like the oldest game in my collection from the ones I bought. And so that was really like my first hobby board game. And so but I wouldn't say like anything about Pandemic made me like nothing blew my brain or anything like that where I was like, oh my God, board games. It just like kind of reinforced for me like, oh, there's a lot to discover here. I didn't realize that board games could be cooperative. I didn't realize that like you're taking on like the game itself, and that like I hadn't played anything like it at that point. And now I feel like that's like you play so many games like Pandemic. So that was like the first one. I need to quickly mention Magic the Gathering, just because Carlo mentioned a little bit, but that really was mine and maybe Carlo's first board game, aside from like, I know you also played chess and stuff growing up, but like in terms of like a hobby tabletop game, it feels like Magic the Gathering was the first one that I was like into in a big way, that taught me that there's these other game systems and everything to get into. And so I'm not including that as one of my foundational games because it's kind of a shared one, but it really was the thing that like sort of creaked open the door to the tabletop hobby for me, and then I sort of blew open with these other games. And then Feast for Odin. Feast for Odin, it's interesting because that wasn't like the next game I got or anything. I think between when I got Pandemic and when I got Feast for Odin, I think there was like 2 or 3 years there. And it was more just that one really showed me how heavy games could be, even though there's heavier games that exist, obviously, and other games that I played. That one really sort of like opened my eyes to that. And also just like the world of possibilities that could exist in a game where it's like, yes, you can have a game where you just whoever has the most points wins, but like there's so much more you can be doing turn to turn, round to round, like right from the beginning with the cards you have, all this kind of stuff to like shape how you're getting those points, which is not something that I was as familiar with as the time or I'd like come to like fully embrace. And so Feast for Odin was the game that kind of like did that for me. And then the only other one that I could think of at the time that I got initially and played a bunch of that really opened my eyes to was Seven Wonders Duel. I got that in 2015, and that one saw the most play in my collection. I still have that in my collection now, although it's on its way out because it's been replaced by Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth. But that one just, like not only for 2-player only games and how strategic and fun those could be, but just that was another example of how like you don't need to play a 3-hour game to be completely enraptured by a board game. Like we were eventually doing Seven Wonders Duel games in like half an hour, 40 minutes max, and yet I was getting out of that sometimes what I would get out of like a full heavy game. And that sort of taught me and it showed me that it doesn't come down to how heavy or complex a game is. It mostly comes down to just like what that game offers, kind of thing. So those are the ones I came up with. But again, like I wouldn't say any of those specific games are really like foundational. Like I rarely bring up those. Well, I bring up Feast for Odin a lot on the channel, but it's more because of it's Feast for Odin versus Agricola, so ingrained in our channel's history. But in terms of me as a board gamer, I don't really bring up these games as like foundations or games that brought me into the hobby. I feel like I didn't really have that the same way. I just sort of like one day wanted to get into the hobby because of the games you were playing, Carlo, and then all of a sudden I just went and bought like 10 games all at once, and I was just like one of those being Biblios, and I just started like buying games, and then like I just learned from there what I liked, right?
And I think we should really mention that we have a Agricola versus a Feast for Odin video on our channel. So if this is your first time landing here or you haven't watched it before, it's one of the most fun videos we ever recorded. And I know people at the time, some said like, oh, this is my favorite video you guys have ever done. It's just a good way to show how much we can still be kind of like respectful and joking around while strongly disagreeing about something. And I have to say, Dylan, the story you tell about going to buy Agricola and then being sold out, it both like in some ways warms my heart and makes me smile, but in other ways it also just kills me to think of this like this potential defining moment, this like sliding doors moment, as people call it sometimes, where it's like you had your hand on the door handle to go through the Agricola door, and then you were like, oh, it's locked, I guess I'll go through this pandemic door instead. And I just wish I could have been there to be like, borrow my copy or like go find it in stock somewhere else. But I have to let that go. I have to accept that.
One day when our channel has like 1 million subscribers and we can like do like full feature length movie projects, we'll do a Everything Everywhere All at Once version of All You Can Board, where what would have happened if Dylan bought Agricola that time and how that would have changed his opinions.
I love it. And if I had never discovered it, if I discovered Agricola through you, how different could things be, right?
Yeah. And instead you discovered Magic Maze, and that was your favorite game of all time.
I don't know where this Magic... I'm going to start picking some random game to associate with you now. I don't know. I still don't understand how this started. Magic Maze is a solid game, but for some reason...
I completely forgot where it started now, but now it's our lore.
It's just one of the many games that left my collection. I still think it's good. I have to say, though, I was expecting to hear you mention Gloomhaven as a foundational game, only because, if I'm not mistaken, was it your first legacy campaign game? I know you were the one running it, like setting up the game, operating the monsters, all that kind of stuff. And I know you've kind of started other campaign games since then. And it was kind of, I guess, a foundational game for us together in the hobby too, right? It's probably the game we've spent the most time playing together.
Yeah, you know what I think it comes down to is I think I was viewing the idea of a foundational game just a little bit differently. Like I was specifically looking at it from the perspective of like me getting me into the hobby, and I feel like by the time we were doing Gloomhaven, it's like, yes, that opened eyes for me and doors for me in different ways, and like shaped how I'd approach legacy and campaign games and how like I realized I really enjoyed them, really loved them. But I guess for some reason I wasn't viewing that as foundational because I felt like I was already into the hobby and already like buying a bunch of board games, and like we had the channel and stuff. But you're right, like in terms of me discovering that I like those kind of games, and that especially now even more so solo, that I want to like delve into worlds like that sometimes even more than I want to do in a video game. Yeah, like I owe that to Gloomhaven because we played that over 2 years. So we got to see properly what it's like to have an ongoing legacy game on the go, which is like hard, as we learn now with like kids and becoming older, like it's hard to do it. Can you imagine now, like for any of us to be like, we're going to meet every 2 weeks to play this, we're going to do this for 2 years reliably? Like that's hard to commit to.
Oh, absolutely. No, you were extremely generous with your time. Like, Corbin and Brad, myself, we owe a lot to you for running those sessions. And, you've always been really thoughtful about ensuring that everyone's having a great time and trying to like bring people together and be very selective about kind of, having these kind of groups. And we owe a lot to you for that. And it was just some of my most memorable gaming moments have been with Gloomhaven, even if it's something I don't return to anymore.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a game. That's the type of game that one day could get its own podcast episode where we like talk about it from that perspective, not like reviewing it, but like our history with it and where it stands now, how it shapes, a bunch of stuff. It could be cool.
Absolutely.
That all being said, I think that's pretty much everything we can give you for a little introduction to us. And really at this point, I think the better thing you can do is jump right into episode 1, where we kick off this podcast and we talk about our board game laws. So all that being said, this will probably be reiterated in the next episode and stuff. But as we go forward, the things that can really help us is obviously leaving a review on the podcast for the episodes, for the show as a whole. This is new to us because normally we ask people to go to the comments and to like the video, and apparently now hype videos on YouTube. But with Carlos shaking his head, I love that every time we mention it, which is like, I want to do that too. It's so ridiculous. Hyping videos. But yeah, if you could leave reviews, especially if you're really enjoying this podcast and you want to hear more of it, it goes a long way to helping us. And obviously just tell your friends and your family and your gamers and stuff like that about us. We'll get into this more in episode 1, but just a little kind of throughout here is just to kind of let you know that's obviously we have an existing channel, but this is still a new format for us, a new venture, and so any support is very, very much appreciated. And that goes for the reviews on here. That goes for joining our Discord, which will be in the show notes in the description, I'm sure. We have a Patreon as well, which you'll be able to find there, and obviously our YouTube channel, our youtube.com/allyoucanboard, or you can just go to allyoucanboard.com and it'll direct you right to our YouTube channel, because we'd like to make things easy that way. It just takes us a long time to get there sometimes. Yeah, Carlo, anything you want to add before we throw this to episode 1?
No, I can't wait to get into the board game laws. Let's do it.
All right, so we'll see you. I was gonna say we'll see you over there. You'll hear us over there in episode 1 of the All You Can Board podcast.